Ramil, welcome, and thank you for being with us here today.
Good to be here. Excited to chat.
All right, we'll get started with a couple fun facts before we dive in. So the first one is, where do you live and what is something you love about where you live?
Yeah, so I currently live in a suburb near Lake Stevens. So this is about an hour north of Seattle. Everything on the west side of the mountains in Washington is basically Seattle. There's really nothing else but Seattle and trees. So I live there. What I love about where I live is, at least in my specific area in Western Washington, I love the landscapes, the variety of landscapes. So, I could go 10, 15 minutes west, hop on a ferry, go through the millions of islands. I don't know if millions, but maybe it's like hundreds of islands on a ferry boat, go whale watching, all that stuff that comes with being in the Pacific Ocean. And then go like 30 to an hour east, and depending on the season, you could go on a hike in the summer, or which I used to do a lot before children was I would snowboard probably every weekend. So yeah, that's kind of the special thing about my area.
Nice. Love the Pacific Northwest. And for those watching, we do offsites every quarter, and Ramil and I are already pushing for our next summer one to be in Seattle. Fingers crossed. What about any hobbies?
Yeah, that one's tricky. I was trying to figure out what is my hobby now. I guess remodeling is my hobby, maybe forcefully my hobby, because we bought this house a couple of years ago. It was built by an electrician. There's all these random things that we discover when we try to do small changes. It just exposes more things that we need to change. So it's fun at times. Most of the time it's fun because it's kind of forcing me to like learn how to be a handyman using YouTube, and trying to save money in that way. But yeah, that's my main hobby right now. The summertime has been awesome. It's where most Pacific Northwesters spend the time outside of the mountains. But yeah, as far as trying to be active, I try to go to the gym. I signed up for a gym membership about a month ago. It was pretty consistent, and then things started shifting where it's like, I need a little bit more sleep. But I try to go to the gym maybe twice a week, but generally it's just going on walks and biking with my family on the trails nearby.
Nice. I love it. And I'm in the same boat. Peaks and valleys on the workout front. It can be difficult to stay consistent. Okay, cool. So we'll move on to some of the meatier questions. I guess first, how did you end up at EarnBetter? Sort of what were you doing before and what brought you here?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. I was at a startup. I mean, most of my journey has been with startups. There was a stint where I worked at Microsoft for a bit. That was through acquisition, so that wasn't something that I necessarily signed up for. But yeah, before I was working at a startup that focused on using AI to make meetings more enjoyable and more efficient. I was head of design there. And that at the time when I started, that's when AI started to become a thing. At least ChatGPT became a household name. So when I stumbled upon EarnBetter, I kind of wanted to continue exploring the intersection between design and AI, and where I could make a huge impact outside of just the specific industry I was working on. So, I read about EarnBetter. I had firsthand experience in the past feeling the pain of job searching, and I thought it was a good opportunity for me to take all of my experience, go into industry. Like I had no experience within like job boards or the LinkedIn's and the Indeeds of the world. So I kind of wanted to push myself and see where I could both take the technology that I'm starting to learn, and kind of continue to gain experience there. So feeling the pain, understanding like how hard it is to be a job seeker, made me more motivated to work at a place like this. So that's kind of how I ended up at EarnBetter.
Love it. And totally agree. Feel like our mission, it's an easy one to get behind. And I know personally, definitely wake up each morning and like, this is a problem that needs to be solved and a lot of people need help. So very, very motivating on that front. What about, what's your favorite thing about working at an early stage startup?
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits. I could talk about what the trade-offs are there, but the immediate growth opportunities, like you're constantly experimenting, testing things, shifting things, iterating really fast. So I some people might not like that. I enjoy that. And I just learning new software, new technology at the same time. You know, when you work for a bigger company, you're kind of boxed into something that you're asked to do, mainly because the organization's so big and you just kind of divide and conquer in that way. But we do divide and conquer here at a startup, but we wear, you know, multiple hats is what they say. I enjoy the multiple hats, being able to like learn things on the fly, explore without restriction, or, you know, being a public company, there's definitely some, if you work for a public company, that there's some, you know, motivations there as well. So yeah, just learning quickly from other teams, like learning from Molly, learning from the founding team. Like you just don't have an opportunity to talk to different parts of a company this quickly, and just getting those insights and understanding each perspective and taking those insights into design is kind of what I really enjoy.
Awesome. Yeah, it's kind of crazy just how quickly we move here, which I also love, but to your point, it's not necessarily for everybody. But you know, we sometimes will ship code in a day that would take, you know, a month or two at previous companies where I worked. So that's something I personally like, but I know not necessarily for everyone. On the flip side, any dislikes, or, you know, if somebody's thinking about doing an early stage startups, something that you know, you would share as far as a potential con?
Yeah, potential con that I had to get used to and constantly, you know, pushing myself to be proactive about is, and I've worked remote for a while. That when the GitHub days where it was fully remote, that all the systems in place. The advantage that they did have is there was multiple offices for me to just drive to, even though we were remote. You know, if you wanted to just have a quick chat, feel like you work at an office, it was nice. When I first started EarnBetter, you know, I had actually the previous startup didn't have a central office either, but I had people that I worked close, like nearby, and so we could just meet up. So I'm unfortunately one of the ones that's like in the northwestern point away from everybody, and I think we've helped bring back the human touch by meeting more often as a group. But yeah, in the beginning, it's like I couldn't really drive to, you know, one of my coworkers, have a coffee, jam out on a problem. And so that's an adjustment. I think for anybody wanting to work remote, just keep that in mind. It is an adjustment, especially if you're primarily in person. But yeah, so you have to be, and then being proactive about that work-life separation. So like right now, like I have a growing child, and sometimes, you know, she knows that I'm in the other room, and sometimes I feel like I need to actually just like present myself like I'm going to the office, just to feel that separation of like work life. So that's something I'm constantly working on, but I feel like I got the hang of it now.
Nice. Yeah. And kind of tied to the one of your favorite things is like working somewhere with a mission that you care about and wanting to make an impact. It can sometimes be hard to turn off. You know, we're all really passionate about what we're doing here. And so sometimes you're looking at the clock and you're like, oh, wow, I probably need to stop or take a break. So totally understand what you're saying there. What about, and this one's kind of tricky, what is the most meaningful piece of feedback or advice that you've received in your career?
Yeah, this is something I had to, you know, work at a couple of companies before I really understood and felt comfortable with. But we say this internally, like prioritize progress over perfection. Like we could spend a ton of time doing a bunch of research, building some assumptions, but we just don't know how people are going to react to specific features of your product until you get it out there, and until you are like force yourself to get it out. It might not be completely polished, but you just don't know how people are going to react to it, and then you can make adjustments from there. So just getting that real time feedback, because you could always revert something, you could always change something. So being more comfortable there is just prioritizing progress. The second thing is, don't take things personal at work. People may react negatively because they don't feel like maybe they're being heard, or something's tough going on in their personal life. So, if there's emotions, you feel like you might be offended by something, I think just talking to them, because you just don't know what's going on in anybody's lives. It's hard enough in the job market, and it's hard enough working in isolation. So there's a lot going on in people's lives, and I think just starting with kindness and understanding is something that it's learned over time, but something that I think has been the most meaningful, at least midway through my career.
I love that. Assume positive intent, and if something feels off, maybe ask the person what's up, and they might be having a rough day or a rough week, or vice versa. And then I loved your first one as well. That's something one of my managers told me earlier in my career, is don't let perfect be the enemy of good, which is similar to what you were talking about. I think that's a good one for a lot of folks. Okay, great. Final question. Any advice you have for job seekers out there?
Yeah, as I mentioned previously, it's and I think we speak to it individually on our own here at EarnBetter, but it could be isolating at times, especially it's just applying and researching. When you're on the computer, time just flies by, especially if you're trying to do a task, which is job seeking. It's not fun, and nobody wants to do it. It's just part of the job that you don't get paid for. Scheduling, I call it in like airtime, which is basically getting out on your calendar, like make blocks of time to just force yourself to go on a walk. It just breathing the fresh air, or even getting a separate space, will give more clarity, give more balance to your life. So I know I need to do more of that. I actually had when I worked at my first startup, we had a consultant that said, hey, just walk around the block every day, just make 15 minutes, and he'll be amazed on how it makes you feel better. It makes you feel more creative. You could come up with ideas that you don't normally do when you're just kind of forcing an idea, sitting down and trying to make something work. So just scheduling some airtime in your calendar on a daily basis. I think it's just good routine there, and make time for community. So it doesn't have to be a formal group that you join on LinkedIn, or like a mom's group or anything else, but just searching for those connections, reaching out to folks that are even in your neighborhood, and just talking to people. I think you lose a lot of that human connection job searching on your own. Most people do it on their own. So yeah,
I like both of those. I think it's important to try to, what you were referring to as airtime, protect some parts of your schedule and make sure you're doing some things for you each day. Because if you just job search 12 hours each day, quickly going to really lose steam, and it can just be demotivating. So whether it's taking a walk or hanging out with your kid, what you were saying, like, joining a group or something like that, but doing something just outside of the job search, I think is great advice. Okay, awesome. I think that's a good place to wrap. Thanks so much, Ramil, for agreeing to do this session with me. And thanks to everyone who tunes in. Let us know if there's any feedback or anything you would like to learn more about in our next one. Okay, see y'all later.